Hello there. Today I'm really in for a treat because the wine I have is a wine called Les Champs Libres. It's a Bordeaux Blanc. It's from the 2019 vintage. Now this is the premium white that's made at an estate called Chateau Grand Village, a property that sits to the west of Fronsac on Bordeaux's right bank, a little bit away from the normal premium white wine producing areas of Bordeaux, which you'll find in Pessac-Léognan, in the northern part of the Grave, near the city of Bordeaux itself. This is a 17-hectare estate, with just 3 of those hectares being planted to white grape varieties. The rest is planted to Cabernet Franc and Merlot. And white wines have been made here since the 19th century, with the vineyards being planted about 3/4 to Sauvignon Blanc and the balance to Semillon. Now, Chateau Grand Village is the home to the Guinadeau family, so Jacques and Sylvie, their son Baptiste, his wife Julie and their children. And the Guinaudeaus are probably better known for owning one of Pomerol's leading estates, Chateau Lafleur, a wine that's one of Pomerol's most expensive wines, and a wine of which they produce only about 1,000 cases a year, so very difficult to get hold of, even if you can afford it. Now, Chateau Grand Village is about 10 kilometres to the northwest of Chateau Lafleur. It's on the opposite side of the Fronsac appellation from Pomerol. And in fact, although it's in the commune of Fronsac, it actually sits outside the area of the Fronsac appellation. Not that that obviously is a factor for white wine, which isn't entitled to use Fronsac as an appellation anyway. The soils here are reputedly very similar to those of Saint-Emilion. They're predominantly a clay limestone with areas of gravel, and the white wines are planted on those soils that are more heavily limestone. Evidently this is part of a ridge that runs onwards from the appellation of Pomerol itself. And here the clays tend to be about 1 foot deep, and the limestone underneath is something called Asturias limestone, which is quite a solid limestone. It's not a soft, crumbly chalk. It's actually a stone that can be quarried and used for construction. Now, while there's a long history of white wine making here, more recently there have been some huge improvements in the quality of these wines, and this started back in the early 1990s when Jacques and Sylvie replanted most of the 3 hectares of vines producing white grapes. More recently, however, since the beginning of the century, the involvement of Baptiste and Julie, the new generation coming through, has seen incremental improvements beyond that. They began some new plantings of Sauvignon Blanc with clonal material that they'd bought from Sancerre in the Loire, which gave a better freshness and a more defined flavour profile to the Sauvignon. Viticulture here is now done entirely sustainably, and they do work very hard in the vineyards to ensure quality, employing techniques such as bunch thinning and leaf plucking to ensure that the fruit reaches optimum ripeness at harvest. So the next stage came in 2013, when the best barrels from the 3 best plots of the white vineyards were blended to produce the first vintage of Les Champs Libres, the open fields. So the wine is now made regularly. It comes from a distinct 0.7 hectares of vineyard. They have actually added a 4th plot that's regularly included in the blend. And I understand these plots are plots that are planted with the Sancerre clone of Sauvignon Blanc. These plots are Alouima, Les Pêcheurs, Les Acacias and Mathilde. The plots were hand-picked. The fruit was double sorted in the vineyard before reaching the winery, and at the winery the fruit was gently pressed in inert conditions. I therefore assume that they're flooding the press with inert gas prior to putting the fruit in to prevent oxidation during the pressing process. Now, the blend of this wine in 2019, it was the first year they'd included some Semillon in the blend, was 95% Sauvignon Blanc, as I say, entirely from the vineyards planted with the Sancerre clone, and then just the 5% of Semillon, presumably to add some extra richness, but also some complexity. Fermentation went on entirely in new oak barrels, and the barrels selected for these were French oak coopered in the Burgundy style, so predominantly 228 litre barriques, but with some larger barrels included as well. The wine aged in barrel for 8 months with its yeast lees, and for 5 months of that period the lees were stirred up, so to impart some richness into the wine and to give it a more rounded texture. The wine was then bottled in the summer following the vintage. So let's have a look at the wine, see what we make of it. There's a lovely vibrant medium yellow colour there, maybe the slightest greenish hint, but certainly more yellow than green. The wine is labelled as having 14% alcohol. The technical sheet actually says that's 13.7, but there's very little difference in that. And it's fairly readily forming some tears there, so that's not surprising that it's got reasonable viscosity with that level of alcohol. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? There really is a lovely, intense, rich, yet elegant aroma there. Those are aromas predominantly of beautiful ripe fruit. There are hints of passion fruit, there's plenty of peach, apricot, mango, and yet there's a very refined, elegant mineral note as well. Perhaps there's a slightest hint of whetstone minerality, but there isn't a sort of an obvious sulphury or gunpowdery sort of note. There's a lovely intensity to the aromas and a precision to the perfume, which is very attractive. So let's have a taste. On the palate, some beautifully integrated toasty oak really comes to the fore. It's completely dry, but this toastiness leads off, and then running on from that you get some beautiful rich peachy notes. There's some lovely sapidity. The wine has some really mouth-watering acidity, but at the same time the richness of the fruit, and it has a lovely creamy texture, but not necessarily the creamy flavours, because the fruit is overlaying those flavours on the mid palate, is giving some good intensity. There really is a sort of a stone fruit spectrum running from ripe peach through nectarine and apricot notes. And there is a feeling of a bit of structure as well, sort of pear skin, apricot skin, peach skin. Slightly sort of velvety texture. The wine has mid-weight. Its alcohol at 14% isn't necessarily providing warmth, but it is perhaps pulling out a little bit of spiciness that you're seeing at the finish. Sweet spices, just perhaps a dusting of ginger or cinnamon or something like that. And the acidity's lifting those notes on the finish really quite well. There's a delicate apricotiness that's lasting deliciously. The wine's got superb balance, lovely focus, it's lasting very well, and yet at the same time there's refinement, there's elegance. The fruit's persistence is gentle. This is not a blockbuster. It has a calm, elegant assurance. This is a very classy wine. When I looked at the Wine Searcher aggregated score, I found that it was 93 out of 100 for this vintage. I think it's a pretty reasonable score, but at the same time, obviously that score is an aggregation. I think if I was marking this wine, I'd probably be looking to put it up to something like 94. I think it has some really outstanding quality in terms of its persistence, its focus, and just the balance and elegance that it displays. Don't be fooled by the fact that this is just a white Bordeaux. I think even at its price, it's not cheap, and they only make about 1,000 cases of this a year, so it's not widely available. I think this is a wine that would quite happily sit in a lineup alongside some of the best white Bordeaux from 2019, and it certainly wouldn't look out of place. I think it's a wine that you'd very happily age for another 5 or 6 years, probably longer. Certainly its acidity and its concentration suggest to me that it would age beautifully. I'll own it's not a cheap wine, but it is very high quality and it's an utter delight to taste. So thank you so much for joining us. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting as much as I have. If you have any comments, do please pop those in the comments box below. If you'd like to watch more of these videos, please do sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It would be great to have your support there. If you have any friends you think might like to watch the video as well, do please feel free to pass it on to them. We'd really appreciate your endorsement in doing that. I'll leave a link in the notes below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, and there you can see where and if it's available in your market and at what price. You can also use the tabs on that page to see more about the winemaking, the details about the producer, the region, the grape varieties. Other tabs can be used to investigate the different vintages, its critics ratings, any awards it's won, reviews from other users, and you can see the price history there as well. So hopefully that will be able to provide you all the information you'd ever need to know about this wine. So thank you so much for joining us, and I do hope you'll come and join us for another tasting in the very near future. Bye for now.